morning, students. Welcome to the lecture of real analysis 2. In the last lecture, we have seen the statement and proof of Egorov theorem, where this Egorov theorem tells us that whenever we have a sequence of measurable functions which converges pointwise almost everywhere, will give us the uniform convergence on the set E minus A. That is, it gives us uniform convergence almost everywhere on the set E. This is what we have proved. In today's lecture, we were going to start a new unit called as Lebesgue integral. This Lebesgue integration is actually the generalization of Riemann integration, which we have studied in our second semester. Right now, Riemann integration we have studied in detail. What are the conditions we have imposed on the function so that Riemann integration holds? What are the conditions in the function? First condition is the function should be bounded. Correct, no? And what about the domain of the function?
Closed.
Yeah, this should be a closed interval, right? So I'll just write down what is the Riemann integration. Okay. Function f, whatever we have considered, it should be a bounded and the domain should be a closed interval. Then only we were proceeding to find out the Riemann integration. And what is the procedure? Let us just quickly revise. Okay, in order to find out Riemann integration, first we were finding the upper sum, then we were finding lower sum. Right now, what is upper sum? Summation capital Mi delta xi. That of lower sum is summation small mi
delta
yes.
x.
What is capital Mi and small mi?
Supremum of partitions.
Function.
Yes, ma'am.
Supremum of the function over ith subinterval of the given partition. Okay. Now here in this Royden's book, the notation used for the upper sum is capital S of P only, and the notation used here is for small s. For lower sum, it is used with small s of P. Okay. Concept was same, only the change is in the notation. Next, we were finding the upper integral. No, what is upper integral? A to B upper f dx we were writing. Yes, what this is? Upper integral is infimum of upper sums, no? Right, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now here we were just writing R. We were just writing R here so as to denote this. This is a Riemann upper integral. Okay. Similarly, what is a Riemann lower integral? This is
Supremum of LPF.
Good. Supremum of LPF. And when we were saying that the function is integrable?
When upper integral and lower integral are equal.
Good. Upper Riemann integral is equals to lower Riemann integral is equal. Then we were saying that the function is R integrable. R is just a symbol we have used to denote that this is about Riemann integration we were discussing. Okay. And many more things we have discussed about Riemann integration. So whatever the conditions imposed in order to find out the Riemann integration, those are actually the limitations, right now? Limitations in order to find out the Riemann integration. Now, what Lebesgue has thought, Henry Lebesgue, mathematician Henry Lebesgue, thought that why to have these limitations in order to find out the integration. Therefore, he has tried to generalize the concept of Riemann integration to Lebesgue integration. In this integration, what he has given, Lebesgue has introduced the integration for the functions which may be bounded or not bounded. Means it is for both the functions, bounded and not bounded. Secondly, whatever the domain was considered as a closed interval for the Riemann integration, it was replaced by an arbitrary set. It was replaced by an arbitrary set. Here, both the conditions, bounded or unbounded function, and domain instead of closed interval, it will be an arbitrary set. Okay, let us try to understand Lebesgue integration. Before that, do you remember one example we have taken of Riemann integration? F of x is defined to be 1 if x is rational. Do you remember this example?
Yes, ma'am.
This is 0.
Yes, ma'am.
X is
Irrational.
Irrational. What is the conclusion we have made for this example? Whether this example with this function is integrable or not?
Not integrable.
Not integrable, because here we were getting upper integral is 1, lower integral is 0. Therefore, this function is not Riemann integrable. Is not R integrable, right now? But with the help of Lebesgue, we were going to show that this is integrable. With the help of Lebesgue integration, we were going to see that this is the Lebesgue integrable function. Okay, this is what an idea. Let me come to Lebesgue integration. Let me come to Lebesgue integral. First, what we were going to do, in order to understand this Lebesgue integral, we will make the small portions. In the first section, we will find out the Lebesgue integral of a bounded function first, then Lebesgue integral of bounded function over a set of finite measure. Okay. Therefore, under this Lebesgue integration, we were going to find out Lebesgue integral of bounded function. Lebesgue integral of a bounded function over a set of finite measure. Over a set of finite measure. Because we were going to define this Lebesgue integration as of we have discussed. This is defined on an arbitrary set, but initially we were dealing with a set having finite measure. Finite measure. Again, in order to understand this concept, we will go stepwise. In the first step, we will find out the Lebesgue integration of the characteristic function. Lebesgue integration of the characteristic function, right? In order to find out the, let me first write down the definition of a characteristic function. No doubt, characteristic function we will define only for the measurable set with finite measure. Okay. Therefore, here I will just write, let E be a measurable set. Measurable set. Measurable set means no doubt it is a measurable subset of real numbers. Correct now? Then what is the function defined? Characteristic function chi E. Yes?
1 if
Chi E takes a value 1 if
x belongs to E
X belongs
and
to
0
that
if
set.
x does not belong to E.
good. If X does not belongs to E. Now our aim is to find out the integration of this. Let me just complete my statement. Is the characteristic function of the set E. Okay. Now here E under the consideration is a measurable set. E under the consideration is a measurable set. Time being, we will just discuss by taking E to be some interval. By taking E to be some interval. This is not a part of your definition. Just I am trying to explain. What happens if E is some closed interval? Is it measurable? Is it
Yes,
measurable
ma'am.
or not? Yes, it is measurable. Then what will be the integration? What will be the integration if I just replace this set by set E by the closed interval, say A to B. This is the x-axis, this is the real line actually. Right now, let me draw the function. What this function is going to take? It is going to take a value E if x is in E, the value 0 if x is not in E. Therefore, may I say the function graph was drawn like this only, right? No? Right? Those points
Yes,
which
ma'am.
are in x in E is having a value 1. And what for the rest values? The elements which are not in E.
0.
Green line I will show. 0. 0 means this is going to coincide your x-axis. Okay. Therefore, what is the region under the consideration? This will be a region. Then, what is the integration chi of E in this case? This is the
B minus
rectangle.
A.
Yes, it is B minus A. And may I write this is the length of E.
Yes, ma'am.
This is the length of E. Therefore, if we assume time being that e to be some closed interval, then integration chi e, integration of this characteristic function is given by length of the corresponding interval. Length of the corresponding interval. Now, if I replace this e by any arbitrary measurable set, okay, any arbitrary measurable set, then we know already length function is generalized initially by outer measure and then by Lebesgue measure.
Lebesgue measure.
Okay. Therefore, now we will generalize this length function which used to find out the integration of e to be some closed interval. Therefore, if I want to replace this for an arbitrary set, for an arbitrary measurable set e, then we will just write the generalization. What is the generalization of this length? Measure. Correct, no?
Yes,
Therefore,
ma'am.
what's the Lebesgue integration for the first characteristic function for or defined on the measurable set? We were going to define, therefore we define Lebesgue integral. Li, should I write? Li, Lebesgue integral of chi of e by this step. Integration chi of e is the measure of e. Getting me? Okay. In order to just understand, initially we have taken this to be a closed interval. If we take this closed interval, integration chi of e is actually length of that interval. Length of that interval. But if I replace that e by an arbitrary measurable set, we know the length function is generalized by outer measure, then by Lebesgue measure. Therefore, the integration chi of e is defined to be measure of e. This is the first definition of Lebesgue integration. Any difficulty?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now we will go for the next function. This is the simple function. Simple function already we have discussed in the last unit. What is simple function? Do you remember what is simple function? This is the measurable
Range is finite.
Very good. The measurable set. First, this should be defined on a measurable set whose values are finite. That is, whose range is finite values. Now, one can have another definition of simple function. Okay. First, let me write the definition of a simple function. What is a simple function? A function defined on measurable set having finite values, right? No, having finite values. We have seen the canonical representation also. Now one can define this simple function with the help of characteristic function also. How? Let us check. If we take the finite linear combination of characteristic function, what will happen? Okay, a finite linear combination of characteristic function of measurable sets. Measurable sets is also called simple function. Now we will try to understand this definition. Is also called simple function. Let me just write this function to be phi of x. Okay. Now we were writing this to be a finite linear combination. Therefore, let me write summation I running from 1 to n ai into chi ei of x. Ai into chi ei of x. What is ei's? Ei's are the measurable sets. Okay. Let us look at this definition. What is phi of x? If I just run up the sum, is it a1 into chi e1 of x plus a2 into chi e2 of x and so on up to an into chi en of x. Okay. Now we know the definition of chi e1, chi ei's. What is chi ei? Define. chi takes the value 1 if x is in ei, 0 if x is not in ei. Correct, na? Okay. Time being, let whatever x I am taking is from E2 say. Is from E2. Then what is the value of chi E2?
1.
It is 1. And what for others?
0.
Other chi ei's are 0. I not equal to 2. I am just explaining to understand the definition, right? Therefore, if I put this value in the above equation, what it is going to give us? These values are 0, rest values. Only chi 2 takes 1. Therefore, is it A2?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Similarly, if I take x is in some arbitrary ei, what is the value of phi of x? Is it ai?
Yes, ma'am.
And for how many I? Finite. I takes the values finite. Means what are the images of the function phi? Possible images. Finite, no? A1, A2, so on up to AN. Okay? And again, this function is defined on the measurable sets having finite values. Here I can say thus phi takes finite values. Therefore, is it the definition of your simple function or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Function defined on measurable set having finite values. Here also we were defining this on the measurable set, and with this linear combination of the characteristic function, we were getting that phi takes only finite values. Therefore, simple function is one of the function which is expressed as the linear combination of characteristic function. Okay. Now, whether this representation is unique, this representation of a finite function in terms of characteristic function is not unique. Why it is not unique? Because we have not imposed the condition on those values of AIs, whether they are unique or not, distinct or not distinct. Therefore, in order to have a unique representation, previously also we have seen this. What we were doing, we were collecting the set AI to be the collection of all x such that phi of x is AI. Phi of x is AI. Right now, instead of this EIs as the subsets of the set, given set, the E I am writing. E is union EI. Okay, I equals to 1 to n. Therefore, all those EIs are the subsets of E. Okay, but whatever this presentation we have written is not a unique presentation. Now, in order to have a unique presentation of the simple function, we were collecting the set AI where the phi images takes value AI simply. Okay, let me explain with the help of first sketch. Suppose this is my set E, okay, and this is the range set, say R. Phi is the function we were defining, and in the range we have only finite values A1, A2 to AN. Okay, now what we were doing? We were doing the partitions of the set E as A1, A2 up to say AN. What kind of partition we were defining? All the elements, or reverse, in the reverse way I can say that all the pre-images of A1 I am collecting in the set A1. Therefore, this is actually mapped on A1. This set A1, this is going to map on A1. This set A2 is going to map on A2. This set AN is going to map on AN. Therefore, here we were claiming the property of AIs and small AIs. What is the property of AIs? All those AIs are disjoint. Partition I am saying, no. And whenever we were saying the partition, what kind of set should be? Disjoint sets. Similarly, all AIs are distinct. All AIs are distinct. If I make this kind of improvement in the definition, then how can I write the set phi of a function phi of x? Can I write this as again summation I equals to 1 to n AI into characteristic of AIs, where AIs are distinct and capital AIs are disjoint. Capital AIs are disjoint. If you observe in this first definition, AI, chi of EI, whether we have imposed any condition that AIs are distinct?
No, ma'am.
No. Therefore, here, suppose A1 and A2 I have written are the same values. Then what about E1 and E2? E1 and E2 are again the different sets where they are mapped onto the same elements, say A1 and A2. Therefore, whatever is this presentation we were writing is not a unique presentation. Okay. Is everyone getting me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Therefore, whatever is this presentation in which we were imposed a condition that the elements AIs are distinct and capital AIs are disjoint, this is called as a canonical representation. We have defined this earlier also, no? This is called canonical representation. Correct? Understood the difference between the two in terms of this combination AI chi of EI and again AI into chi of AIs. Okay, this is the canonical. Canonical means natural and this is a unique representation. This is the unique representation. I don't know whether you have understood this or not. Let me just explain by taking the example. Suppose in the first presentation, phi equal to AI into chi of EI. EIs are not distinct, no? AIs are not distinct. Suppose say A1, suppose there are some 50 values and out of those 50 values A1, A3, A7 are same. Then A2, A4 are same and all the rest are distinct, say. Then what are the distinct remaining? A1, A2, A3, A4 covered, A5, A6, A8, A9 and continue up to A50. These are the distinct values. These are the same values. Now in the presentation, what it is going to give us? A1 into chi of E1, A3 into chi of E3, A7 into chi of A7. Or one can club these two. One can write this as some representation. B1 say, if I replace this by B1, then B1 into chi of E1. Okay, then A7 into chi of EI. Then these two are equal. So if the sum of the values of AIs are not distinct, sum of the values are same, then whatever this presentation we were getting is not unique. Then what we have done in the canonical presentation, whichever the values are same, let me put it by some B1. A3, A1, A3, A7, let me put it B1. Let this be B2. Let this be B3, B4, B5 and continue. Okay. Then next I'm writing the presentation of phi as Bi into chi of Bi. Right? Correct? Now what kind of this presentation? This is the canonical. Unique. This is canonical, that is unique presentation. लक्षात येते का बघा इथे काही जण A1 A3 इक्वल करून प्रेझेंटेशन लिहितील काही जण A3 A7 इक्वल करून प्रेझेंटेशन लिहितील काही जण A1 A3 A7 वेगवेगळे करून लिहितील the way of writing this kind of formation depends on the values. Okay, just to make the presentation unique we have imposed a condition AIs are distinct and capital AIs are disjoint. I think now the idea was clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now the question arises how to make the, let me call this a statement number 1, how to find out the Lebesgue integration of this simple function given by a canonical representation, right? Now already we know that integration chi of E is given by measure of E, right? Integration chi of E is given by measure of E. Now what I'll do, I'll just take the integration on both the sides of this equation number 1. What will happen? Integration phi x dx is integration summation AI chi of AI, right now? right? I'm
Yes,
taking
ma'am. Yes,
integration
ma'am.
on both the sides. But we know this integration summation are interchangeable. Therefore, I'll write this as summation I equals to 1 to n integration chi of ai. But what is integration chi of ai? Characteristic function.
Major of AI.
Measure of ai. Therefore, may I write this is ai into measure of ai. Okay. Therefore, integration, Lebesgue integration of the simple function is given by integration phi of x into ai into measure of ai. Okay. But restricted with phi vanishes outside the set of finite measure. Phi vanishes outside the set of finite measure. That is, if ai's are not of finite measure, phi vanishes. Phi vanishes means what? Phi takes the value 0. Therefore, the Lebesgue integration definition says that if phi vanishes outside a set of finite measure, outside a set of finite measure, then Lebesgue integral of phi is defined by, how it is defined? Integration phi x dx is equal to summation ai into measure of ai. Summation ai into measure of ai. No doubt I runs from 1 to n, because the function under the consideration is simple, means it should have some finite value. This sum must be finite. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now sometimes instead of writing integration phi x dx, it was written simply integration phi. Simply written integration phi. Okay. This is what an idea generalized. Initially for characteristic function, from length to measure we have generalized. From length to measure. Then for a simple function expressed in terms of a characteristic function. No doubt in terms of canonical representation. Okay. Now that canonical representation, if I use, then integration phi is summation ai into measure of ai. Now the job is to check whether this is going to give us actual integration. Now to check this, what should I do? I will take this ai sets to be interval, because we know idea perfectly. Whenever the set under the consideration is an interval, how the integration is being calculated. Okay. So let me give you a simple example to understand whether this is giving us the integration or not. Okay. Let us take a small example. What is the example? Phi is given to be 2 times chi of a1 plus 3 times chi of a2, where a1 is closed interval 2 to 3 and a2 is closed interval say 4 to 7, and it is asked us to find out integration phi. Integration phi means integration phi x dx. Okay. According to the statement, this phi is expressed in terms of characteristic function and finite sum. Therefore, may I say that the phi is simple function?
Yes, ma'am.
Here, phi is simple function. If phi is simple function, one can use the definition and go for finding the integration. But before that, I will try to understand what kind of function this is. I will try to understand what kind of function it is, so that it will be easier for me to understand the integration as well. Okay. What is chi of x? 2 times chi of a1 operated on x plus 3 times chi of a2 operated on x. Okay. Two sets are given, a1 and a2. Two sets are given, a1 and a2. Again, what is the definition of chi of a? 1, 0, if x is in a, if x is not in a. Okay. Now, let me take x is in a1 first. Let me take x is in a1. Then what is value of chi a1? 1.
1.
What about chi a2?
0.
Therefore, phi of x takes value 2.
Yes, ma'am.
Right now. Or here I can write x belongs to the closed interval 2 to 3. Similarly, if I take x in a2, what kind of function it is? What kind of values it is going to assume? Chi of a1? 0. Chi of a2, 1. Therefore, function assumes a value 3.
3.
Therefore, clearly, can I say this is the clear-cut case of a step function? Phi of
Yes,
x is
ma'am.
2 if x is in this interval. Phi of x is 3 if x is in this interval. Let us plot. For every time, if you just take a help of the graph, it will be easier for us to understand, right now? I'll just try to plot this. And what is the function values? 2, 3, na? Okay, in the interval 2 to 3, it takes value 2. So shall I draw a straight line like this in 2 to 2? 2 to 3, sorry. Okay. What for 4 to 7? Is it 3? Okay. This is what a graph I have plotted of the given simple function. And clearly this is the step function. Clearly this is the step function. Okay. Is the function understood?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Now let us use the definition, given definition in order to find out the integration. What is integration phi with the help of a Lebesgue measure definition? Lebesgue integral definition, summation ai into measure of ai, right now? So let me write summation ai into measure of ai. How many I here we have? I from 1 to 2?
2.
Right. Therefore, let me just run the sum. This is a1 into measure of a1 plus a2 into measure of a2. Okay. If I compare the function a with the standard canonical form, what are the values of a1 and a2? We have
2
to
and 3.
yes, good. a1 is 2, a2 is 3. Right. a1 is 2. And what is measure of a1? What is a1? This is closed interval 2 to 3. 2 to 3. a2, sorry, I have to write 3, na? 3 into measure of 4 to 7. The sets under the consideration are intervals. Therefore, how this measure is being calculated?
Length of interval. Length of that interval.
Very good. Therefore, this is 2 into 1 plus 3 into 3.
3.
Reason. Measure of this interval 2 to 3 is actually length of the interval 2 to 3. Therefore, this is 3 minus 2, 1. Similarly, measure of interval 4 to 7 is length of the interval 4 to 7, which is 7 minus 4 is equal to 3. Therefore, what is the value we were getting integration 5? 2 into 2 plus 2
11.
11. Okay. Now come to the sketch again. Just tell me what is the area covered by this step function with x-axis. What is the area covered by this first rectangle? Height into breadth.
2.
What is the height? 2, na? What is the breadth? 1.
1.
What is the area of this first rectangle?
2. 2.
What is the area of the second rectangle? Height is 3.
9. 9.
Width is 3. 9. 9 plus 2.
11.
But exactly it is giving us the integration value. Okay. Therefore, Lebesgue integration will give you the value of Riemann integration provided the underlined set is an interval. Here it is interval, no? 2, 3 and 4, 7. Okay, so whatever this generalization made was really very correct. AI into measure of AI. Actually, we are no one to judge whether it is correct or not. We have understood it is correct. We have understood why it is defined like this. Is it okay? Understood the example?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Any difficulty in finding the integration now? And understanding why this is 11 from this graph. Okay. Now let me give you one more example. That example which we have discussed previously, a function f from f defined on closed interval 0, 1 to r, defined by f of x equal to 0 and is equal to 1, provided if x is rational and if x is irrational. This is what we want to find out. Integration, Lebesgue integration. Okay, Lebesgue integration of this interval I, where I am going to write by closed interval 0. Okay. This is the function and we have already seen that this is not R integrable. This is not R integrable. The reason is lower integral is not equals to upper integral. We have proved it. If you want, you can just go to that example or your notebook and check. This is not R integrable. We have seen already. Now we want to check in case of Lebesgue integration. Looking at this function, what are the values? 0 if x is rational, 1 if x is irrational. But this definition seems very familiar to us in terms of characteristic function. Therefore here, if I replace this value, x is rational, that is if x is in Q, this is 0. Sorry, I'll just make a simple change. I'll replace the values. 1 and 0. Now, if x is in Q, the value is 1, and if x is not in Q, the value is 0. The value is 0, right now. Therefore, may I say whatever is the function defined, it seems to be the characteristic function of a rational number?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Therefore, what I will do, if Q is set of rational number, in closed interval, Q will not be a suitable notation, no? Because Q is the symbol we are giving for all rationals. But here I am writing only for 0. Let me write this as some set A. If A is a set of rational number in closed interval 0, 1, then above function is characteristic function of A. Correct, no? If the element is in A, this is 1. If the element is not in A, it is 0. So whatever is this, we have written in terms of characteristic function. Therefore, may I write this function here as characteristic function of A. Then what is integration? Is it integration chi of A? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Audible, no? Therefore, what is integration chi of A we have seen? This is
Measure of A.
This is measure of A. Now, what is A? A is the collection of rational numbers in the closed interval 0 to 1. And we wanted to find out its measure. Can anyone tell me what is the major value?
1.
Why? Why 1? Yeah, whatever the answer you have given, don't worry whether it is wrong or right. You have tried to give the answer is a good job actually. Yes, why you think it is 1? I think you have taken this as an interval. 0, 1. And then
Yes,
you have
ma'am.
calculated the length. But this is not a set A. What is set A? Set A is rational numbers. in closed interval 0 to 1.
0.
We are not taking rule. Huh?
0.
Yeah, 0.
Zero.
Why?
Infinitely many terms are there.
Whether you have defined for infinitely many terms that the measure is 0.
Countably many.
Yes, this is countable. This is countable. Right now? Because rational numbers in whole are countable. Therefore, what about rational number in this closed interval 0, 1? Are they countable?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes, countable. Therefore, the set A under the consideration is countable. Then what is the measure? Measure of a countable set is
0.
zero.
0. Therefore, we have found integration f over the interval I is 0. Thus, the function is Lebesgue integral. Thus, the function is Lebesgue integrable. Yes, any difficulty up to this? We have
No, ma'am.
tried to find out the Lebesgue integration of two functions. First function is characteristic function. Second function is simple function. Step by step we will proceed further. But have you understood with this example also? If instead of this interval, if it is an arbitrary set, can you show by this graph like this? It is difficult, no? It's difficult to show, right? Therefore, whenever we have a finite set or a countable set under the consideration, we were writing its integration is 0. We were writing its integration is 0. Why it is 0? Let us try to justify again. I will not take this example. It is difficult for me to give. I'll take one simple example. Suppose the set under the consideration is a finite set 1, 2, 3. And phi of x is defined to be 1 for all x in A. Therefore, may I say this is a simple function again? Whether the set is measurable? Finite set 1,
Yes,
2, 3.
ma'am.
0. Measure 0 means it is measurable. And this is having only one value that is finite. Therefore, this is a simple function. Okay. Let us just try to plot this. 1, 2, 3. Here it is 1, this is 0, this is your function phi, this is x. I will plot these points. Phi of x value 1 only for every x for all the three values. Therefore, may I say the points will be like this. This is the first point, second point, third point, right? Now, according to the definition, what is integration phi? This is actually a into chi of a, no? Only one value I have. But what is the definition? Is it a into? Is it a into measure of a? Phi is a into chi of a, no? Simple function, only one value I have. What is a? 1. This is set a. Then what is integration phi? Is it a into measure of a? A is 1.
Yes,
what is
ma'am.
measure of a? 0. For integration is 0. Therefore, there is no area, na, actually. There is, whether you are observing any area bounded by these points?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
These are itself the points, na? And what is the area bounded by the point itself?
Zero.
0. That's why we are getting integration phi 0. That's why for any finite set, measure is 0. Okay. Therefore, integration is 0. According to this discussion. Try to get me, okay? If you have any difficulty, you can just unmute and ask me. I am making it very simple for you to understand. Okay? I hope there is no queries now. Now the next question is, as of we have seen the definition of integration of a simple function. What is the definition we have said? Integration phi is summation ai into measure of ai, provided this is written in terms of a canonical presentation. The question is, suppose I don't know whether the simple function given is a canonical representation or not? Then what to do about the integration? Now we were going to prove a lemma which will help us to say that whenever we have phi represented in any form, not necessarily a canonical representation, but the only condition we will impose is and the sets AIs are disjoint, then the integration is given with the same definition. This is what we were going to prove as an important lemma. Okay, understood what the lemma is going to tell us? Though simple function is not in the canonical presentation, but still we can find out the integration with the same formula. Try to understand the statement of a lemma. Let phi is given to be summation ai into chi of ei. I runs from 1 to n, where ei intersection ej is empty for I not equals to j. What this condition tells us? ei intersection ej empty for I not equals to j.
Disjoint.
Aij disjoint.
Yes, it is pairwise disjoint rather, right now? Pairwise disjoint. Okay, and if each ai is measurable, if each ei is a measurable set with finite measure, because Lebesgue integration time being we were discussing for what kind of sets? Sets with finite measure. Measurable set with finite measure, then prove that. What to prove? Integration phi is summation I equals to 1 to n ai into measure of ei. Okay, AIs are given to be disjoint, but whether AIs are given to be distinct?
No, ma'am.
Therefore, here AIs are not necessarily distinct. Not necessarily distinct. Therefore, is it a canonical representation?
No, ma'am.
It is not a canonical. Therefore, this is not unique also. Right? Here shall I write? Thus, this presentation is not unique also. But though it is not a canonical representation, still we were saying that integration is given with the same formula, ai into measure of ei. ai into measure of ei. Okay. Now, in order to prove this lemma, what we were going to do, we will try to convert this not canonical presentation to canonical. What we were going to do, we were trying to convert this not canonical presentation to canonical. Now, for canonical, two conditions are essential actually. What are the two conditions? The elements are distinct and the sets are disjoint. Out of the two, one condition is given, that the sets are disjoint. Therefore, what remains to verify? These AIs are distinct elements. These AI should be distinct elements. Therefore, what the job we were going to do here is, we were going to see initially how many AIs are having same values. Okay. And those AIs having same values, we were going to club it together. We were going to club it together, and the set A we will form by clubbing or by taking the union of the underlying sets, EIs also. Okay. For the sake of simplicity, let me tell you again with the help of an example. Let me tell you an idea of the proof. Suppose I have some A1, A2 to A30 values, okay, where all are not distinct. Not distinct means what? Some of
Some
them
of
are
them are equal.
equal, right? Time being, I will write A1, A3, A7 are same. Then A2, A5 are same. And rest are distinct. Therefore, whichever the values are same, we will club it. We have clubbed it, no? Okay. And what are the values remaining? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 remains. No? 4. 6 remains. 8 remains. And all the further values are say distinct. Okay. This is just for the sake of understanding. I am telling an example. Right? Okay. Whichever the values are same, we have clubbed it together. And these rest values are distinct. Say. Okay. Now, what are the sets under the consideration? For A1, what will be a set?
E1,
E1. For A3,
E3.
for A7, E7. Therefore, these are the sets under the consideration for these values. For these values A1, A3 and A7. For here, say E2 and E5. E2 and E5. Correct now? Now, what the point we will do, whatever this A1, A3, A7 are equal, let me put as B1. A2, A5, let me put as B2. Here, let it be B3, B4 and B5. I'll change the notation. Right? Whatever is your last number. What will be a last number? 3 values will be less, no?
B27.
Yeah, this is B27. Now, what is the BIs? May I say all BIs are distinct now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
All BIs are distinct. Okay. Now, the next job we will do is, whatever the underlying set of these equal values, we will club it together by taking a union. By taking a union. And I will call this as A1. This as A2. Okay. And rest it is same. A3, A4 and all. Right. With this discussion, what we have done, we have made the elements AI distinct. Elements
Yes, ma'am.
AI distinct. And union of this pairwise disjoint sets we have taken A1. Whether these A2, A1, A2, A3 are still disjoint?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, they are still disjoint. Therefore, here these elements I got distinct, AIs I'll got disjoint. With this, whatever the representation given, AI chi of EI will become a canonical one.
Yes, ma'am.
And once it becomes canonical, we can use the definition of Lebesgue integration. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Therefore, this is for the sake of understanding I told you. Therefore, now what I am going to do, I am collecting the set. Notations I am changing differently. Okay. If it is understood clearly, shall I start the proof? What I am going to do in the proof? Okay. In the proof, we have started with phi is a simple function on union EI. I runs from 1 to n. Time being, one can call it as E also. E is union EI. Okay. Now, here image of phi. We will take image of phi. What is image of phi? Whenever I am writing in one set, all the elements should be distinct elements, no? Whenever we were writing a set, are you repeating the elements in
Yes,
the set?
ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay. Therefore, if I start with one element in this image, we were collecting all those values. Suppose here, I'll take with an example again first. Then I'll come to generalization. Suppose I wanted to collect, I wanted to find out an element A1 in image of phi. Okay. What is the underlying set? A1. Okay. Then how this A1 is defined? collection of all x such that phi of x takes the value b1. I have defined, no? b1 I will take b1. Distinct is b1, bi's, no? Distinct is bi's. Therefore, here we were collecting those elements in the domain whose phi image is b1, which is equivalent to say collection of all x such that phi of x is a1, phi of x is a2, a1, a2, na? Or a1, a3, sorry. And phi of x is
A7.
Then what is this a1? May I say a1 will be union of. For a1 it is e1, for a3 it is e3, for a7 it is e7. Okay. Okay. Similarly, if I will start with a general number a in image of phi, I am not using ai's bi's notation. I am going with a general standard notation. If element a is in image of phi, how the set AA is defined? Collection of all x such that phi of x takes value a. Okay, and whenever I am saying a is in image of phi, all these elements are distinct. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Understood the set AA? Now I will directly write the canonical representation is given by canonical. Why I am saying it is canonical now? Because the elements A I have taken from image, therefore those are distinct. What is the canonical representation of phi I am writing now? This is A into chi of AA. Is it okay? A is an element of image of phi, which is where these are distinct. No doubt some run over A into chi of A. Or one can write this as AI into chi of AAI, where AI is in image. Is the point clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, this is my canonical representation. This is my canonical representation where what is the value of your AA? The value of this AA is union EI, where AI takes a value A. Here as I have written, no. A1 is E1, union E3, union A7, E7. Similarly, here in AA, what we were writing? Union of all those EIs where AI takes a value A. Okay. Okay. Is everyone getting me or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Or if I wanted to write in terms of say AAI. Okay, AAI. Then what it will be? This is union AI takes some AJ takes AI. Union AJ takes AI of EJ. Try to understand these two. Anyone you can follow. AA is those AIs I want to collect which takes a value A and union of all the respective sets EI. Or if I want to write in terms of AAI, where AI is an element of image, therefore this should be distinct. Therefore I am collecting all EJs where AJ takes value EI. Where AJ takes value EI. Then what is the measure of AAI? Measure of AAI is measure of union. This is summation, no? Why it is countable additive? Because EJs are given to be pairwise disjoint. Right, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Lebesgue measure is Measure is countably additive on what? Lever measure is countably additive on pairwise disjoint sets, right? No? Wait a minute. Printer is not working. Lever measure is countably additive on pairwise disjoint set. Okay? It's almost 110. Na? 5 minutes proof is there. What happened to it? Okay, as we are running out of time, let me stop it here as my pen tab is also not working. We will continue this part in the next lecture. Okay, but have you understood up to this how we have made the partition? And we have
Yes,
how we have
ma'am.
converted the given presentation into canonical. Next part is very easy actually. Integration 5 we have to take major summation AI into measure of this AI, and so that it will give you the required result. Okay, but pen is not working, therefore let us stop it here. We will complete the proof in the next lecture. If you have any difficulties up to this, you can ask me. No difficulties? Shall I stop then? Okay, let me stop it here. Okay, we will continue the next part in the next lecture. Okay, those students who are not attending the lectures are instructed to attend, because if once you do not understand the starting part, it will be very difficult for you to understand the next parts also. Okay, so let me stop here. Thank you for being with me for this today's lecture.